Welcome to this video on the topic of innovation. Now, innovation is an extremely important topic in business studies. It explains the type of products that we get. It explains the way in which industry is changing, the way society indeed is changing. It tries to explain the dynamism that underpins the changes that we see in our everyday lives when we go to the shops, or the type of products that we wish to purchase. But it also tries to explain the nature of production itself and the changes within the productive sector. And for these reasons, it's an extremely important topic, and it's one that deserves its own module, as indeed it's got here. And in the course of the module, we'll be looking at many aspects of innovation. There will be quite a lot of overlap between one concept and the next, but all subtly different. So it's worth paying attention to each of them. This is just an introductory class. So let's have a look at what's involved in innovation. So we're exploring and developing new technologies and new ways of doing things. That's what innovation's about. We are constantly in the process of developing new technologies. This is the way of the world. We've been doing it since we arrived on the planet. And we're also looking at ways in which we can do things better, the way in which we produce products, and the way we trade, the way we manufacture. So it's not just making new items, it's looking at existing items that are being produced, but looking at better ways of doing it. And we can roll all of this up under the heading of innovation, because innovation is what's creating the change. It's vital for the future viability of an organization. Organizations that don't innovate will get left behind. It seems to be a part of our nature as humans to constantly look for better ways to do things, better ways to produce. We're looking for new products, new ideas. And if an organization is not keeping up with that, that organization will get left behind. So it's important for organizations, for companies, to look for new products, look for variations perhaps in their existing product, one which will better suit the market and give more satisfaction to the customers, and also look at better ways in which the product can be produced. So innovation is a key to long-term success. This is the way in which companies survive in the long run, and the ones who are most successful at the innovative process are the ones who are going to survive and the ones who are going to be most successful. The companies that do not innovate, they're the ones who invariably lose their position in the market and will ultimately fail. So it involves exploring and developing new technologies and new ways of doing things. It's a constant search for better methods, looking for ways in which resources can be combined, and out of those ways, those new ways of combining the resources, there's a more efficient way of producing the item, producing the product. But it's also looking for information from the market, feedback perhaps from customers about the products that are currently on the market, to try to determine what would the customers really like to see. This really goes to the heart of the whole competitive system, the whole nature of capitalism. The producers wish to perhaps make more profits and get more satisfaction from their working lives. And in order to do that, they wish to satisfy customers' requirements. If they manage to satisfy the customers' requirements, they will sell more. Sell more, more profits. So we have almost here a modus operandi for capitalism itself. Innovation involves exploring and developing new technologies and new ways of doing things. The new ways of doing things means more efficiency. better ways of doing things. And what things are they doing? Well, they're producing new products, ones that are more aligned with the requirements of the customers. So it's important for the long-term viability of an organization. Companies in the short run may survive with the existing product structure, but in the long run, they need to vary their portfolio. They need to have new items, new products. And the development of those new products is the innovative process. So we have a typology here called the 5 C's, which is quite popular within the study of innovation. And the 5 C's starts with capability. That means companies must have the ability to innovate. Now, by that, I mean the management must have the will to innovate. They must have the knowledge and the personalities which are forward-looking and willing to experiment, willing to take chances. So they are constantly looking for ways in which to innovate, and they have the ability to implement those changes. So that gives us the first of the 5 C's, the capability. It's the ability to innovate. They must have the ability. If they haven't got the ability, it's not going to happen. It's as simple as that. Second, the culture. The culture must be supportive, and it must be endemic within the organization. The culture must be that the organization is constantly on the lookout for new products, new methods, new technologies. There's a constant push within the organization for newness. And that's the culture of the organization. If the organization is complacent, if they're just sitting back and happy with what they're doing and with the technology and their methods, that organization will ossify. That organization will fold up in the long run. That organization has no future. Because other companies will be forward-looking. They'll have the capability and they will have the culture of change, the culture of trying out new ideas. So the ones that don't do that will get left behind. Of course, they must have the cash and the recognition. There's no point in having a great idea if it can't be funded, if it can't be implemented. So ideas must, first of all, be recognized as having potential. It must be recognized as a good idea. This proposal for changing the product or changing the production method, it must be seen as a good idea. But then the resources must be there to implement it. Otherwise, it simply remains as an idea. It remains on the books as a good idea, but it's not implemented. So it must be recognized as a good idea, and then it must be implemented. And they must have the cash and the resources to implement it. Otherwise, that innovation will stay put. There must also be customer orientation. It must be aimed at the customers. It can't simply be for the benefit of the management. The management think, this is a good idea, we will implement it, without reference to the customers. Because that would please the management, but it may alienate the customers. And the customers are the ones who spend on the product and who therefore generate the revenue side of the business. And if the customers are alienated, the revenue side of the business will be depleted or run down, and the business itself may fail. So any development must be customer orientated. The customers are at the center of innovation. It's the customers, in a sense, who are driving innovation, driving the desire to innovate. It must also be the case that the company are able to cut its losses. Sometimes management have a great idea for something, and it's perhaps quite expensive. It's in terms of the proportion of its budget that it's going to spend on this innovation. If the innovation itself is not working out the way they imagined, there are unforeseen problems or issues. There could be all sorts of issues, legal issues or technical issues. There could be HR people. The skills and the competencies within the workforce are not there to develop this particularly new idea. If that's the case, the company must be honest, hands up, and say, yes, we walk away. We'll perhaps come back to it in the future when we have the resources and the ability to do it. But if they start a project and they've committed resources and they find it's not going to plan, they must have the strength to walk away and stop the project. Stop it and perhaps resume it at another time in the future when they have the capability, when they have the resources, they have the cash, they have clearer ideas. Come back to it maybe in the future, but for the moment, cut it and walk away. So that's our very brief introduction to innovation. That's really all we want to do in this session. So let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.